Okay.
Yeah, go.
um, I don't know. I can't remember exactly how this conversation came about. Um, I think maybe we were talking about success or something, um, or a
Hmm.
sense of feeling of as being
I
established.
think I think
Um,
we were talking about this podcast and how and we'll explore this in more detail later. But we're talking about this podcast and how we should
mhm,
approach it and what would make us happy and feel like this was a success. And we came to some revelations, but it began with this example you're
mm.
about to give.
Okay, set the scene. I was on a trip with some friends down to Shimoda in Izu, um, and which is this beautiful part of Japan where everyone. It's a beach town, firstly, and it's on a peninsula coming off the south point of where you can see Mount Fuji, basically, and it's quite a small peninsula. So on either side is just open ocean, and in the center is mountains. So you have quite distinct kind of weather there. It's very tropical almost, especially in the summertime, because and it's quite like you got the winds coming in from the Pacific, and a lot of it's great seafood there because the richness of the Pacific is coming in from right from there, and then the other side of the peninsula is very beautiful, very calm, very blue. So it's very interesting. Yeah,
Bay.
it's very cool. And then all the people there are very chilled out. They're all like surfers, and they're all very dark skinned. And they got curly hair, like either they perm it or it's natural. I don't know. And they're all just like like those kind of like surfer vibes. Um, and we went to one place where I always go for dinner, which is basically just this barbecue spot, and it's on this. Um, it's a little hill basically on the side of next to a cliff with a more or less sheer drop down into the sea. And in the distance, you can see like another rocky outlet coming down with a one small Japanese-looking Zen-like tree coming out as well from that little outlet, and then just silhouetting against the sea, the vast sea in the distance, the Pacific in the distance. So it's very
Stunning.
Zen kind of like vision that you're seeing right there, especially when it gets dark and the moon comes down and you see the moon like just like creating a line of light down the like a sword,
Oh
where it's
my
like
god.
the light, the moonlight looks like a sword,
Yeah.
just like breaking apart the ocean. And then so it was like that, and then just coming into that little sword of light was the Zen tree coming off the rocky outlet, and then the
Oh
ocean,
my
and then the
god.
moon, and
Inky blue
exactly. So
water.
that's what you're seeing. Um,
Mm.
and behind you, the guy's just got this like nice setup where basically it's just grass, and then in the center there's a bonfire, and then around that he's got like a yakiniku points, basically barbecue points set up where you cook your own food, and you sat there and drinking.
Who's this guy?
I, I don't know.
Just
Honestly, I would love to get to know him because this is kind of like where the inspiration came from. So he's got it's a great setup. Firstly, because you don't have to do any cooking yourself. You provide the ingredient. He just provides the ingredients, and he provides a nomi hodai service, which just basically means unlimited drinks for a certain amount of time. You pay, yeah, nomi
Nomi
hodai. You
Hora.
pay
Nomi
like
drink.
exactly
Yeah.
like 2,000 yen or something
Mhm.
for nomi hodai for 2 hours. Um, and yeah, you just enjoy good food, barbecue it yourself with some alcoholic drinks, and there's other people around you. Great atmosphere, and then
That's
and then
so
like
cool.
and then he's also playing very relaxed, chilled out music. Like Nora Jones like comes on or something like that, and then you'll see this beautiful sea
Mm.
in front of you on a cliff. So it's almost like a little mountain. So it's like separated from everywhere else as well. It's just elevated above, and then
Wow.
on your left is this really long, famous beach,
Yeah.
beach called Shirahama. So on your left is a beach, and in front of you there's this open sea with a Zen painting in front of it, and on the right it's kind of like this part was a bit spoiled. It used to be it's construction almost. They're building like a condo there, but he's kind of blocked that off so you
Mm.
can't see
Okay.
it. Yeah, and then we
Mhm.
just had some nice food there, chilled out, and then I think afterwards anyway, I left my car there
Yeah.
because obviously we were drinking. So was like, "Oh, is it all right if I leave my car here and pick it up tomorrow morning?" And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, cool." So
Mhm.
obviously, next morning, with a little bit of a hangover, walk over to there, my friends and I, and it's about 7:30. But then walking up, we come into the area where the barbecue is again, and we see the view, and we're like, "Oh, I have to have a look at that view again." But in the morning, in the lights, and taking photos, and then I turn around and I see the guy there, the same guy who owns a restaurant, just sat down. He's just looking out at sea, and he's got a baguette, eating a baguette, and just looking out at the sea. And I turned around, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't see him there." And it's like you can see he's just like behind him. That's so attached to the place where he's like pouring the drinks. Obviously, there's a building behind that, and he's just living there because it's his house. I could see inside. Um, and I remember, he just looked so chilled. He was just like enjoying the view in the morning, coming out, waking up, grabs a baguette, sits down outside, just looks out, see, and just enjoying life. And I remember thinking like,
Mm.
oh fuck, he's this guy. He's got it sorted. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he enjoys, and
Yeah.
and he's doing it. And I you know, whether I'm successful or not in the city or something, I look at that and I'm like, that is success because he's
Mm.
reached a point where and obviously this is a massive assumption because I don't know the guy and I'm just looking at him and I'm making massive assumptions. So this could all be bollocks as well. but I'm imagining,
It's like sat there
yeah,
eating a baguette,
yeah,
contemplating throwing
exactly.
himself off the cliff.
And I'm just like there, like this guy, he's made it in life. but but it quite clearly was not that part. It was the former. he
Yeah,
was
yeah,
very
yeah,
content. He was very
yeah.
happy. It was quite clear.
So that's exactly it. And I think what struck us about that story, what struck me about that story was that we sometimes build up these projects thinking that once the project's complete at that point, it will be successful and then I'll be free. And it's like you're in a constant state of suspense and stress until you get to that imaginary
Mm,
point. And something that he wasn't doing by the sounds of it was being like, Will was saying, okay, I built this um, one setup that people are
mm.
using. It's good. Let me make another one in a different area, another one
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
different area, another
Mm,
one in a different area. And constantly expanding, trying to you're never being satisfied by where he's at now, but always trying to expand it. And I think the conversation was if you want your work to provide you the sense of freedom, then you have to give up the sense of kind of making it into something, forcing it to something successful. You kind of have to make sure that the work itself, like right now, as you're doing it,
mm,
is enjoyable. And we spoke about this context of the podcast because we were like, we need to get the podcast to this point before X point before we can be happy with it. And it's like that was taking away from
mm,
the enjoyment we used to feel just by act of recording and having these kinds of conversations, and and then realizing that every single time that we do something, every single time that we record, every single time that we chat on the phone, when it comes to this podcast, has to be like that guy sat with the baguette, looking up. The freedom of the whole thing starts now. It starts with the fact that we're enjoying doing this.
yeah.
Um, versus putting that as like an end point. I don't know. I said a lot of things there,
No, I mean,
um,
no, no, no. I
but
think the part that
yeah.
you said that it was that you resonated was this kind of like sense of needing to expand, right? And because it's never
Mm,
enough. It's never enough. You always
because
to feeling successful. I don't think you can ever really truly feel like no, you can feel successful, but I think you can never really truly feel that you succeeded. I think because people people don't even know what that word means. What does it mean to have succeeded, right? And so
Mm,
that it's like, it's like a high jump, like that, where that line is at the moment, that means
mm.
success. But then you can always be like, oh wait, but I can raise a little bit higher and then do it, right? So
Yeah.
it's never,
Hmm.
you don't we don't even know where it means to have succeeded, right? Because that bar always changes. Um,
Mm,
so I think what we concluded was that
mm,
contentness is something that is absolutely necessary, you know. Um,
mhm,
and
mhm,
then relating to the podcast is that we just feel content in terms of well, actually, yeah, what we do, and actually, no, that doesn't relate to the podcast at all. But it is a cool little conclusion that came from watching that guy.
no, but no, but I think it does relate to the podcast in the sense that 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 contentment can come from, look, we're having this conversation now. We wouldn't have unless we we're doing this
Mm,
project.
mm,
And it's a point in my day that I'm actually looking forward to enjoying, and it's productive, right? I hope other people listen to it and take something from it, and it builds value, so it's productive. But what we're not trying to do in this is kind of optimize and
yeah, yeah.
maximize. Because the second we start to do that, it's like, and we're thinking about views and how do we adjust the arrangement so
Mm,
we can maximize on the YouTube
yeah.
algorithm, and that's
But
where you
that's
start to
that's
just
where your
get pulled
mind
out
ends
from
up
this.
being
And
in it.
yeah,
It doesn't end up being
yeah.
in actually just being present in that conversation or something. You're thinking too much about what little tweaks
Yeah.
can we do? What do I have to remember in order to make sure that it fits the algorithm, so or maximizes the chances of being successful. And
Mm,
which is a very abstract term to begin with, just to bring it back around.
yeah. Yeah. No, but that's exactly it. And then you lose your sense of, and you're doing that because of this idea. I think that, oh, well, if I get those views, then the podcast will start to
Mm,
make money and then I can start to be
mm,
happy. But actually, if you suspend
mm.
that, you can be happy with it now
Yeah.
and enjoy
Yeah.
this now. And then actually, given the nature of what we're trying to do, I think it would, I don't know, we got to see. We got to see if it,
And
you
it's
know,
funny because we're
if it
always talking
resonates with
about
people.
authenticity as well, authentic life, achieving
Uh-huh.
that. But then as soon as you start trying to, well, you're not being true to that
Exactly.
own
Exactly.
philosophy if you're
Yeah.
thinking about changing ways that you usually are to maximize, like
Mm.
distribution or whatever,
Hmm.
maximize the ability. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think ultimately
That's
that
exactly it.
kind of authenticity is actually what people hopefully are interested in.
I'm betting on it. Otherwise, it's going to be me and you.
Which is not a bad thing, Chetan. It's not a bad thing, yeah.
Which is not about. This is exactly it.
I mean,
We've
there
managed
are
to do
other
this for two
people I
years
could
now.
imagine having a conversation rather than you, but that list is
At this
only
time.
about 100 long or so.
um, no, dude, that's absolutely it. That's absolutely it, and that's exactly why I think we're recording this
Mm,
episode. You know, and it kind of drew on like something Maria said as well about um, who was a guest on our previous podcast about but how she began her journey, and it was very much like just to actually, well, just to begin to work on it. But that's where I want to go. It's actually where I want to talk to you
mm,
about um, your kind of intuition. That beyond this podcast, I think you also want to set up a place to stay, right, for people.
possibly,
And is that
possibly, yeah.
possibly possibly? So why possibly? What's holding you back from saying yes? Is it because you don't know if you want to do that or if you can do that?
Bit of both. It's a bit of both. No, I don't think I mean,
Okay.
I think I don't think I've ever been like 100% dead set on anything in my life. So I don't think I can or ever. get dismiss any doubts, in terms of that's actually what I want to do.
Mm.
Because there'll always be a little like niggling thought in the back of your mind, like, is that really what you want to do? There's nothing you can do about that thought, I think. So that's definitely there. Um,
Yeah.
can
Okay,
can
that's
do, I don't
interesting.
know. But I mean,
Uh,
yeah, I mean, it was fascinating to talk to her, and also Sam. I think I've been influenced definitely by the people that we've had on the show, right? Like talking to Sam and his, I would call it
mm,
success, because he's got quite a successful hostel.
yeah,
Sounds awesome, and he's devoting almost half of
and
the year, maybe a little bit
yeah,
less, to traveling because he can. Half the year he works, half the year he travels. Sounds amazing.
he travels. Yeah, and he's not worried about I need to open up three more branches in the UK so I can secure this lifestyle. He's like just we asked him about his
Mm,
future, and he was just like, well, yeah, there might come a point where we sell this one and open up just
mm,
another one, in another part of the
yeah,
UK. And he's very relaxed about it. And I think in that sense,
that's that's
yeah, these
yeah.
conversations are
Maybe
quite
this,
valuable.
maybe you can measure success. Maybe the success is the ability to be able to do that, have the option to do something like expand, and then choosing not to.
It's like Bruce Lee's like non-violence. It's like I could destroy
Mm.
you right now, but I
And that's
choose
where
not
power for him probably comes
to.
from.
So yeah, it's like why do you train all day if you're not smashing people up? It's because I want to know that I
Mm.
can and then choose not
Yeah,
to. That's true
yeah.
non-violence.
I,
That's
I, I, I
true
was listening to
control
one
of your destiny.
podcast recently where I think it was Joe Rogan and The Rock. Fascinating podcast. Um, well, I've only got like a quarter of a way
two,
through it,
two,
but
two,
anyway,
two
yeah.
stones, two plebs. Yeah.
But
Um,
I I think they were talking about like what training in a martial arts does for people, and it's that they're saying it's
mm,
you could fuck anyone up in a fight, but it's not the reason to, and it comes in handy.
mm,
And but they were also talking about like that's why people in school might train in martial arts, like if they're getting bullied or something like that. But they all said, but even if you train the bullies, they'd probably get rid of bullying as well in the end, because they probably get taught humility, I would imagine. This part they didn't expand on, but in my mind I was
mm,
thinking about it. It's like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense, because if the bullies get trained, they're also getting fucked, obviously, at martial arts school by other people, and they
mm,
get like humility hammered into them, and also, respect for fighting. I think, it doesn't. I think once you respect the art of fighting or being able to fight, like
mm,
meaningless little fights like at school or something like don't mean anything anymore, like that's not a fight. People who are trained
mm.
fighters and watch videos of people on the street fighting. It's just that's like hilarious, they're like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, and you wouldn't want to use it for. No, it's actually, and look, I made a little joke about The Rock and Joe Rogan, but those two guys are incredible people. Like, what would
Oh my
they
god,
manage to achieve in one
it's a
life? Even
very
it's
like
just.
encouraging podcast to listen to, because they're like talking about how much they love trading, all that kind of shit. And I'm like,
Mm,
yeah, I want to get like I'll become like that as well. But they haven't talked about much
I
yet
love
else
it.
so far.
And you're right about that. I never really thought about it. Like your intuition would be that if you train a bully to fight, he's going to use it to. But we're not really thinking about the contextualization of
Mm.
violence that
Yeah.
would come with training in a martial art that they don't have, and also maybe even those insecurities that lead them to be a bully.
Mm.
There's something about
Yeah,
training
sure.
which
Definitely.
will maybe help you overcome those, and you don't express it as punching
Yeah.
down. Um, you know, that's a really
Mm.
interesting thought. But okay, let's go back to your thing. Well, I actually would like to set up a simple place like what that guy has in
Mm.
Japan. I think the idea of having a cool little space, which doesn't, that can be that people can just turn up to and cook and chill out and do their own
Mm,
thing, and doesn't even need to place a stay to start with, just needs to have an interesting concept and
mm.
feel, would be something. I don't know how you would sustain. Does he sustain his life? I mean, I guess you wouldn't know. Does he? Does he make enough income from? Was there a lot of people there?
Actually, it's quite a popular place. Every single time I've been there, except for that time last time,
Yeah,
it's always been packed. So I'm
nice.
sure he's
That'd be fun to do. I'd actually really like to
would
do
be
that.
really cool.
Um,
I mean, he doesn't look like he's living
that'd
extravagantly
be
or
really.
anything like that, and probably you can't see it anyway. He's got a little truck that he's got up there, um, and he's that spot, and
Mm.
I think he's happy with that. Hmm.
Simple life.
I think he
That's. I
has
mean,
kids as
sounds
well
really good. Sounds like
because he had a trampoline there, and we're like asking what's that for. He's like, oh, it's for the kids. So I guess he's got family, but he looks so
lovely.
young. He looks younger than me, which is obviously really young.
It's a lack of stress. It's a lack of stress. Um, no, it's very cool. It's very cool. And what do you think is so you said that you don't know what you've never been like 100% on this is what I want to do. And I think I'm
Hmm.
similar there. But you must have some things about like, that you're more curious about, interested in occupying your time with than others. Um, like I'm not interested in banking or finance. Like that is something that I'm just not interested
God,
in.
I wouldn't want to be friends with anyone who was. No, I'm joking. People just sound filthy.
It's hard for our listeners.
Maybe there's a banking person out there. I apologize. But God, I could never be interested in anything like that. I don't see why.
But you must like have. All right, okay, fine. Too much of a question. But then, okay, so I guess you want to potentially experiment with things. Ah, see. You want to potentially experiment with things that allow you. So, what would you consider a cool way of living, or like one that you want to get to? I just want to try and paint the picture, in a sense.
Um,
Good.
like,
My mother-in-law just popped in, gave me a coffee.
oh, there's my mother-in-law. Um, um,
That's not.
um,
Mm.
um,
Soon to come, maybe. I don't know.
oh God. What's the question again?
The question was, if you were to picture this life that's a more not an exact, of course, like there's different components to this, but if you were to picture a life in which you are content and chill and doing your thing, what do you have like some sort of vision of what that kind of not like a vision, but a sense of what that might be like? Like, if that was sitting like the guy with a baguette, or if it was something else. I don't know.
Yeah, it would probably be someone that was living in just surrounded by nature, I think, and and
Mm,
nice little house and just there. I think. I
simple.
think every single time I've been in that kind of situation, I've always not always, but
Mm,
often those are the only times where I'm like, this I'm completely happy here, you know? And
mm,
there's times where
mm,
you're like, I could just if I could just like capture this moment, I could just like live like this. You would. I can't think of
mm,
outside like where I've been, like in a work environment or school environment. Even like people often say like best time of their lives were at school or university or something like that. It was great fun for sure, but there's never been a point where you're like I'm this moment I could just sustain.
mm,
I could live like this,
mm,
and that's always
mm,
been like in
mm.
nature, I would say. So I can imagine something like that, a way in which that's sustainable. But it's always
That's a fascinating way of thinking of it.
when I'm there, I'm always kind of thinking it's impossible because I think it's
That's
also
it.
because the fact that it doesn't seem like something that you could actually do or sustainable, maybe. Um, it seems so amazing, like ideal.
I, yeah, I think that's a really interesting way, like a litmus test to give yourself. It's like, what have you done or it's been or experienced in life where you can say, if I could capture this and stay like
Mm,
this, and for me, I have experienced that. Like when I've been living on the farm in Glasgow with my father-in-law in
mm,
Colombia. Those days that I spent there, multiple, I mean, all the time, like I'd work on the farm and, for days on end, multiple times in a month. Never did it. Every time I left, every time I got there, I was like, it's like entering an ocean. It's just like,
mm,
this is it. I'm at peace. The whole day's routine, everything that we're doing, I can actually
mm,
do this. But the thought does enter my mind. Yeah, but that's because my income comes from outside of this
mm,
place. How do you do it from the farm
mm.
itself? How do you become a farmer and actually do all these things and have this
Does
life?
it seem
And
unrealistic
I
as well?
think
Then it doesn't seem like it's something. It seems like you want
it,
to do,
seem,
but it's something you could never do.
it seems like something that I could do only once I'm rich.
Mm,
It's like if I'm rich, then I can do this. And and I wonder if but I've never evaluated it on paper. I've never sat with my wife and gone, do you know
true.
what? What are the worlds that we want to create for ourselves, and what would it really take to create those, and does it really require to be rich? I've never actually done I think it's just because you see the motion of society, all your friends, all your family, um, doing a certain kind of thing when it comes to their economics and being stressed about economics, and you just can't believe that your idea is somehow smarter, or
But
if
that's
your idea
it's
is isolated, then you would naturally feel like there's something wrong with it, just
mm.
out of a sense of intuition. Which is, I guess, why we're doing this podcast, so we can build that community of people that behave in this different way to kind of
so so
get us
actually.
out of that.
Well, the
Yeah,
interesting that
yeah.
I think I would take away from that is that all that it takes then basically to. I mean, we kind of stop ourselves by saying it's impossible, even though the actual journey there probably wouldn't be so difficult, or the attempt wouldn't be so difficult. We just tell ourselves we can't, and we don't even try it. Like you said yourselves, you haven't even calculated. You haven't even sat
Mm,
down with your wife and actually calculate how much that would be. How difficult would that be? Like you could do that, like within about an hour, like less
mm,
than an hour, but you don't do
mm.
it.
Get an idea of it.
It's a
Yeah.
great idea. Why not see how feasible of an option that actually is? But it's kind of like you haven't done it because it's like
Yeah.
it's not it's unrealistic anyway. What's the point? I
Yeah.
think, and you always hear like people like and many influencers always saying on their social media website or whatever, you just got to make that first step. You just got to do it, put it into action, this kind of stuff. And it always sounds nice hearing that. You think, yeah, yeah, okay, whatever. It's easy coming from someone who's already fucking made it. But the thing is, how many people can actually put their hands up and say, I actually went for it, I tried it, or I started it. I
Yeah.
started it. Very few, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah. Very few, I'd imagine. I would say that. But I would also say that there's might be like I've given things a go before, and I think the mistake I made. I think anyone who's actually tried it and
Mm,
failed, um, is you would also say that you would always try it
hmm
again. Um, but but have some sort of income whilst you're trying it. Have some sort of backup option that if it doesn't work out, you're also developing something else, or you have something else to turn to, because the worry that we have that it will create complete instability in our
mm,
lives is a real one. But I think what we're trying to discuss is how do you contextualize that in a way that is actually productive, rather than go either all out, no, it's impossible, and go all out. Okay, I'm just jumping in with my 2 feet. Oh crap! It's a bottomless pit,
Mm,
and all my fears are confirmed. How do you do this in a practical way? So I think that's why we've got the examples of the people that have come to the podcast so far,
mm.
while we're
And I
processing
think
things in
that's
this kind
also
of a
kind of how
way.
we
Yeah.
kind of linked it to Viktor Frankl as well, because at the end of the day, it's
Mm,
you're doing something that's very
mm,
difficult, very it's risky, in you, especially maybe in the
mm,
stage of life that you might be, but that's kind of also what gives meaning to it. Um, that's what because
mm,
it's meaningful to you, right?
mm,
It's yours, and you have to make it work.
mm,
Otherwise, other people are depending on it
mm,
as well. Whereas if you're in a job, it's not really as risky, I guess, and much less
no.
riding on it.
I-
Um, and so if you're unhappy in that, there's no real kind of meaning for yourself in it. You're working for somebody, working
mm,
for a company basically to make profit. Um, but there's like less of an emotional attachment to it, maybe, I guess, because it's not as risky. It's a bit more stable. So you place,
It
yeah.
much. It,
So, but anyway,
it's,
the
it
difference is that
solves
I think
that.
that's where
No.
maybe depression actually no, you can be depressed actually, like even if your own like meaningful job like fails as well. Um,
So interesting thing, right?
mm, I was
Um,
trying to go with,
yeah.
but
So
actually no. I think as I was talking, no, as
go
I was
go
talking, I
go.
think I realized that it does make sense actually.
um, yeah, I mean, I think getting a job does solve um, a real human kind of fundamental thing that we have to avoid
Mm,
risk, because risk is can be
mm,
catastrophic, and so getting a job, it doesn't only just help us to avoid that psychologically. It's actually true. You get a paycheck coming in
mm,
every month. It's very, very low risk for you. And if something goes wrong, if you have the skill set, you go to the next job. You're not, whereas if you're building a business, if it goes wrong, you go to zero. And then you have to, and probably minus depending on how much you invest in. So there's a lot of, I would say,
terrifying.
my experience doing it in steps, becoming used to. I mean, my experience is different to Sam and Maria, but doing it in steps, getting used to, let's say, managing, getting used to the industry you want to get into, understanding that, getting used to managing money, getting used to managing people, whatever it takes, so that you can reduce the risk of each one of those steps, that you won't screw something up, and then just start that journey. And that's kind of like how I've been approaching it with getting into the marketing world. Is precisely so that I can understand how to build those business skills. But anyway, to your point about depression, yeah, and related to, I think you're relating it
Yeah.
to meaning, and how, and Viktor Frankl there speaks about. Um, his book is, I think, Man's Search for Meaning,
Hmm.
right? And
It's where
and and where that
he's the
comes
one
from.
that coined the term logotherapy, right?
Hmm. I don't know too much about. I think your brother Jamie knows a fair bit about. But I mean, what's your take on it? If you've got an opinion, or not even opinion, if she can explain it, what it is.
Um, I mean, no, I mean, it's quite simply, it's the um, the need
Yeah,
for meaning.
I've got a
Yeah, like
definition here.
what
Okay,
happiness
go for it.
or contentment or you know, or lack, or maybe actually the lack of meaning is actually more relevant in terms of like lack of meaning is what would come to depression. And if you don't have that meaning, then the will to survive or something or to keep going has actually gone. But people who have meaning in their lives, and that could just be like family members or anything like that, and
Hmm.
being able to realize that you're so lucky to have that as well. So like
Hmm.
his you can tell, you can understand it through his journey there. His journey was that he was in a concentration camp, and so he was basically stripped of
Hmm.
everything, like everything. You got no pride. You got no you got no family. You've got no money. You've got no
Possessions,
possessions. Everything, like
family.
even a human's like emotions, are basically just taken away because you see the most horrible things. But the
Mm.
only things that kept people going, and it was still a remarkable amount of people, because like reading about it, I mean, I'd be like, why the fuck am I even alive? You know, why haven't loads more people killed
Mm.
themselves? And it's basically the only thing that people cling on to at that final point is basically meaning, and the yeah, and so no
And
understanding that journey,
mm,
then you can understand logotherapy. It's the meaning that is why people would become depressed
that's
or not be happy, basically, because like the fundamental.
that's exactly. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
so,
like it's like how
mm,
Descartes came up with his philosophy. He took away everything, he broke down everything, and then the only thing that you
mm,
can about what you can really know, and then he then by locking himself in a
is that what
room,
you can't
the
doubt?
only thing that you can really know is that I know, I think, therefore I am. Is that you can think. So it's like a reductive kind of like way of reaching a conclusion, which basically he went through himself rather than thinking about it. He was basically reduced of everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So Descartes' thing, yeah, was like anything that I can doubt, is something that is I can doubt
Mm,
it. Therefore, I'm not going to take it as something I can
yeah,
definitely know. And then as he was in that room, I think he realized that I am thinking, and who's thinking if it's
yeah,
not me?
yeah, yeah.
Doesn't So that's the only thing
That's all
that's
you can
left.
know,
And
that you exist.
so that at
Something.
least,
There's
yeah,
something
there's
that's
there's a
thinking. Yeah,
consciousness here doing the thinking
mm.
of the thinking. So logotherapy.
It's
Uh,
going to be something completely different.
I got the definition here. It's what you said. So logotherapy is completely different. It's a therapeutic approach that is a therapeutic approach that helps people find personal meaning in life. It's a form of psychotherapy that is focused on future and our ability to endure hardship and suffering through the search for purpose. So I think I mean, so it is what you said, and in that story in the book, I think Jamie would be much. He'd have a lot to add because he's the one that actually introduced us to the book. But the idea was finding meaning in hardships
Mm.
specifically, looking at hardship in a way, and this is what he
Jamie won't be able
realized,
to add anything, by
especially
the way,
in the Nazi camp.
'cause he's an idiot.
Uh,
So I have to take. You have to. You
There's
have to.
becoming a
You
running
have to
theme
take a
of those,
swipe at
of
your
the
younger brother.
episodes here. You do, apparently. I don't have one. But yeah, it's exactly that. So it's like where hardship would lead to us to have sort of existential crisis, you now take that and you find a purpose for it. When you find a purpose for that
Mm,
hardship, like there's a reason for it, there's something useful about it, then
mm,
suddenly you can transform people. And at the end of the book, he's talking about his different. There's a particular story that I can't remember. I have to pick it up for the next podcast too. Maybe we do one with Jamie and I remember all the different stories. Um, but um, but yeah, it's exactly that. It's just exactly that. There were people coming to him after the Holocaust as well, after he was released from the concentration camp, and he was treating them, and he was exactly doing this, like kind of getting them to realize the purpose of that
mm,
hardship, giving them that perspective shift. It's just a perspective shift and how much of a difference it made. On the front of what we're talking about, which is about work, I think there was another book that we were talking about yesterday called Burnout Society by a German Korean philosopher called Chul Byung Han, or some some
Byung-Chul
some combination of those words. Byung-Chul Han, yeah, okay, that was his name. Um, and by the way, as a fun fact, my my Korean name, the name given to me by my Korean colleagues in 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 Seoul was Han, because my name's Chetan, which is like Che Han, and Han means Korean. So
Han
yeah,
means
they
Korean,
they yeah, as far as I understand, yeah, yeah.
so your
I
name
could
is
be completely
just
so
Korean.
Han.
Han Solo.
No, but I mean,
Han Solo's Korean.
so I just typed in I just typed in what does Han mean in Korean, and then the answer that Google gave was Korean rage. Han is often described as an internalized feeling of deep sorrow, resentment, grief, regret, or anger.
Have I just muted
Um,
myself, by the way? I think I pressed the mute button on here.
no,
Okay,
no, no,
good.
you're good, you're good. Um, so also, why are Koreans called Han? Korean may have inherited a word from at
Atlantis.
Altaic ancestors from whom Mongolian was descended. In fact, the word Han is Sino-Korean cognate of the famous Khan, as in Genghis Khan, and Han, so
Oh, okay.
Han probably more than Khan, has been in the names of ancient has been used in the names of ancient countries in both Korea and China. So Han, I think that's what they were really relating it to. That's why people are called Han in Korea, and that's why I think it was. I think yeah, even if it just means Korean, it's kind of nice that you're honored
Yeah.
with such a name by Korean people. Anyway, so his book was talking about the way that depression occurs in modern society because we almost have so let me run through these chain of thoughts as best I can off my head. We almost have like a pathological yes in modern society. So he was saying that in the past you had a disciplinary society where you had basically commandments given by people and roles to fulfill. And this is so what the experience, the good thing about that was that you had a destiny and you fulfilled it. Now you don't, and you have to create it for yourself. So you're constantly self-aware and self-obsessed,
Mm,
which is exhausting ourselves. The second part of that is that there was an other. There was somebody that you could fight against and say no. Now, in this modern society, it's a society of positivity, the society of yes. So the pathology, whereas before you could identify it's the man, and I'm going to reject the man. Now the man is just yourself. It's when we talk about hustle culture and the achievement society is what he called this society, the achievement society. Everyone's trying to
mm,
achieve to fulfill life.
mhm,
That's what we consider like the completion of our life is the maximum achievement. When you do that, you enter a space of saying yes to everything. Yes, all of my time is for work. Yes, all of my attention is for work. Yes, you're to give me more stuff to do. I will do it so I can achieve more. When you start doing that, there's two issues. One is you can't even identify that you are exploiting yourself. You've opened the doors to self exploitation because you are doing it to
mhm,
yourself, and it's a positive. Um, but the reality of hustle culture is that now we are exploiting ourselves and we don't even know it. We are, and that's where burnout comes from. It's the overexertion of of us. We don't stop and say, no, I'm going to take a break because we see that break and we see, well, I can make it
mhm,
productive. The achievement society, the productivity society. And that lack of productivity, he has a chapter just on boredom to address that and like the benefits of boredom that we just don't allow ourselves to have anymore. And it's for this reason we're burning out. The second part of the burnout is because if if you're constantly it's kind of what we're talking about. If we're constantly in a state of becoming, if we're constantly never allowed to say, I'm there, I've done it, and you're constantly saying, look, I'm not there, it's just in the future, and you're constantly in a state of becoming, that exhausts your
mhm,
soul. You can't you can't ever be content. You can't ever, it's not even just can't be content, the actual act of doing that over and over again is exhausting. Um, and it's this constant state of becoming that we that has come about because we live in this achievement society. We don't have a goal to fulfill, right? Anymore. The goal is something you make up. So even that becomes an exhausting use of your time and energy of constantly self-reflecting and self-obsessing about what's best for me, how am I, etc. You
mm,
know, and the other aspect of it is that in the achievement society, if you can't achieve, which is only the top 1% of people are going to blow up, everyone else feels like they haven't made it and you can never come to a state of completion, which depresses you. You know,
mm,
there's no keeping up. So this is the modern. issue that's come with, we still talk about fighting the man as the 9 to 5 as a problem, but actually we've moved on from that now. And we have a problem that we can't even identify. And I think the thing that you can point to is hustle culture that we've all, I think everyone listening to this podcast will be familiar with. Um, I've definitely gotten into the trenches with that and tried to use every moment of my time to do something productive, and realizing that it's not just that, oh, I'm too weak to be able to sustain this level of stress. Look at Elon Musk. Elon Musk is like this example that everyone uses,
Mm.
right? Has like 10-second schedule for his day, 10-second lunch, whatever it is. um, it's not just
Kind
that,
of
it's
hard to
just the
believe.
fact that it's fundamentally not
Yeah.
human. Yeah. He doesn't have a 10-second lunch, but he basically divides his day up into 10-second
Really?
slots. Yeah, yeah, yeah. According to an interview I watched with him,
Mm.
it's mad. And the thing is, we've come to a place where we live in a mechanized world. We see machines, we see productivity, we revere these things, and we've seen ourselves now as units of productivity, as machines. And so we're treating ourselves as if we're that kind of an entity, but we are human, and we've forgotten what it is. This is why going to nature, living with tribes, all of this kind of authentic, all of this stuff is becoming more and more interesting, because how do you treat yourself as a human being? How do you find that way of living that actually elevates you as a human being, not just output, productivity, economics, all these kind of things. So yeah, we've come to exploit ourselves, and we don't even see ourselves as people anymore. We see ourselves as machines to be optimized,
Mm.
which is a problem. Which is a problem. So that was a lot of stuff, but I think that's why it's so interesting, and it kind of, again, from multiple angles, I'm hearing the same narrative, that one of the most profound things that I got from Viktor Frankl was this idea that he told his students that just work on your projects. Don't try and aim to be successful. Success is a byproduct, but don't aim for
Mm.
that.
I think
And in a
so. Like
way,
it sounds like
yeah.
Byung Chul Han. His
Mm,
his reasons are that people are kind of like thinking too much of like future potentialities really, whereas Viktor Frankl, he's saying it's lack of, yeah, well, I think it's almost like the same thing. It's like he's like it's lack of being in the moment. Well, not really being in the moment of yeah, in that moment realizing what is really important to you rather than being anxious about the past. Well, what have I heard this? Like if you're anxious, you're living in the past. If you're um
mm,
no, if you're upset, you're living in the past, and if you're
mm,
anxious,
mm.
you're living in the future. And if you're living in the moment, then
Mm.
you're good.
Until, and then when the anxious and person will say, yeah, until you join me in the
Yeah,
future,
exactly.
you didn't make the
Yeah.
decisions. And then you go back to thinking about the
Mm,
future and getting anxious. Human beings spend a disproportionate amount of their time. I think it's because of risk. We want to plan
mm,
ahead so we can minimize risk. It's just part of our
mm,
intuition. And again, none of these things are bad. They just have to be properly contextualized. It's like, how much are you in control of your mind,
yeah.
that you can control how much you're in the future and how much you're in the
Yeah.
present, like, or is it just happening? um and it's kind of yeah, runs onto what Byung-Chul Han saying. But he's basically, um yeah, it's basically a critique of modern philosophy, of how, it's basically an analysis of
Okay.
burnout
Yeah. Yeah. No, it sounds like
burnout
it.
in our
It sounds
society,
interesting. I've
and
got it. I've got
depression.
it saved on
Yeah,
my computer here, so
yeah.
I'm gonna read it once I finish the current book that I'm reading, which is going to probably be in about another year. That's my current reading pace at the moment. So
So don't expect anything too soon. But yeah, I mean, to draw it all together, I think at least for the particular thing that we were talking about this podcast, it's very much, you know um, uh, if once you, what is it? It's like one. Viktor Frankl's idea that success isn't measured by is to you should leave that to a side if you want to be content. You should work on whatever practice or project you have just because that's what you're
Mhm.
working on. When you get really good at it, you'll be successful. So that's one thing. The other thing is it's not it's with the other thing is to just recognize that you're a human being from mutual hands analysis, and that it's not about treating yourself as a productivity machine, and finding that balance is really really important, and also fulfilling a role, finding completion in something, which is what we used to have in the past, right? If you're your ex religion, this is completion. If your ex job, this is completion. Here now we're so obsessed with finding that sense of potentiality that you said. We're always living in potential, and always self-obsessing about what's best for me. What is that really what I want
Mm.
to do? Like Jiro said in that sushi video, which is I think everyone should watch. Very much he took a very strong stance on once you start a profession, you never change it, you never stop it, even if you don't like it. And that's very hard for us to understand what he means as modern people. And I don't think we have to go that
Mm.
far, but certainly there's
Yeah,
something there. There's something there to that, you know, you know,
I
and
think what you
and so
can.
just start your
Yeah.
projects and
Well, I mean,
what?
I my
Yeah.
concluding thought would be just um, giving it your your absolute all. I mean, any project that you start, giving your absolute
Mm,
all, and believing in
mm,
yourself, like giving ability to do it as well. And but yeah, but basically giving it all. I mean, I think also from the episode, well, what was inspiring about the episode with the Rock and Joe Rogan, they're just talking about how I think he was talking about his martial arts days. His
mm,
he always kind of, because he was moving so much, he always, and
mm,
he never knew so many people for any amount of time. He was always kind of nervous around people, and then he became really good, and he thought himself as a loser,
mm,
and then he started doing martial arts. And he got really good at martial arts, and then he was like, oh shit, I can do something,
mm,
you know. And then, but then what he was
mm,
like saying that, but then after that experience with martial arts, he knew that if he did something, and he did something all out, because for him, martial arts at that time was basically him coming to a realization that he was not a loser. So that's why he stuck at it and he kept doing it, because
mm,
it was important to him, because it's what he was good at, right? And so, but after, in hindsight, he realized, yeah, if I just do something and I do it full 100%, I'll be successful at it,
mm,
right? And then after
mm,
that, anything that
mm,
he
mm,
went on to do after that, he did it with 100% effort and with the intent of succeeding,
mm,
because he knew he could, and
mm,
that's what actually drove him to success. And I think from that, you can see the same thing that we were just talking about as well. It's like you do it, that becomes your meaning almost, and you do it and with 100% knowledge that you can succeed if you do it with that intention.
or doing it with the intention that you're trying to become the best that you can be, and just not doubting yourself, and just continuing to
Mm,
work on it, work on it, work on
yeah.
it, work on it. Because I also had many martial arts, yeah, say that you got to separate the result from the practice, otherwise you're going to lose motivation.
Mm,
But yeah, I think that's it. It's that lack of doubt. Like don't second guess. Don't be like, but I could be doing something else. Like this is what
mm,
I'm doing, and that's what I'm going to
mm,
do, and just give it your all. And actually, in life, I've kind of noticed that the regrets that I have are just because I doubted myself and never took something. If I took it to completion, it would have led to another opportunity. And I think we're
yeah.
living in a world today, a society today, especially in the West, where where that's a real potential. If you develop a certain skill set, yeah, there's a use for it, and you're gonna be. You can't predict. Oh, I'll be a millionaire, but you can predict that you're
Mm,
gonna
yeah.
be all right
Yeah.
financially, right? You're gonna,
You can
you know,
predict that if you
somebody's
do
gonna pay
it
you.
like
Yeah,
full on.
if you
Yeah.
just give it
There's no
everything.
reason to not to.
Yeah. All right. Boom.
Yeah.
I like that. High note on the end. Okay, guys. This is an open discussion. If you guys want to chime in with your comments in the comment section below, we were more than happy to engage with them and read them. And I guess on that note, until next
See you
time,
later.
see you later.